That's so funny.
Welcome everybody to Trashy Imports. We've got the beautiful Rossi on tonight.
Oh, and
and,
Steve. Steve will make
and
a guest
Steve and,
appearance.
and Steve and
Because I
Steve.
never go anywhere without Steve.
No, not to clubs, not to shows.
No, Steve's a club doggy, huh? You were a club doggy.
Yes.
She's retired right
So well
now, but
behaved.
she's retired right now. She's like,
pretty good.
I'm retired.
You're not retired though, right?
No, God, no. Actually, I'm featuring I'm so bad. Like, I don't even know what club, but for Exotica, in Miami, I haven't done an Exotica since like 2017.
Wait.
And I'm doing Exotica Miami. And I'm featuring that Saturday. So I think that's Saturday the 28th.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, what is that Saturday? Because I'm gonna be there.
Big party, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is. Steve, do you have to choose? Steve's like, I want to choose right now to play with my ball. Like, perfect timing. Perfect timing.
It is June 27th to the 29th.
Okay, so the 20.
What club is she at?
Yeah, what club am I at? Here, I'll look at my contract. I'm so bad. I'm like,
It's
they've
okay,
just like
face,
set
I'm sure you're
up
gonna
and
kill
I'm
them.
like, okay, whatever. Like, okay, hold on. I'm so bad. Well, it kind of like got like coupled into like me going to Exotica to begin with.
Right.
Because I haven't gone in so long, but I'm like, I want to start. Okay, let's go to 2025 feature dates. Gold Rush.
Gold Rush.
Ooh.
Wait, is that? Have you been there?
No. No,
Apparently
last time I did it.
Great club. Apparently it's a great club.
Okay, cool. I don't know where it is.
But I'm only doing one stage, so that's cool, And then I'm featuring again at Sapphires on July 10th. But I've kind of like slowed down my featuring, and not because for a while I was like, I'm sick of traveling. I can't do this anymore because I was featuring a lot. Yeah. And then I slowed it down, and then I slowed everything down. And now I'm like back to like doing photo shoots and doing appearances and then featuring. So that's exciting.
Bambi knows a lot about getting burnout from featuring all the time.
But I've been featuring for like 16 years, and this last winter was just such a terrible traveling. Like, I swear, from like November to January, every single feature gig, there was like some sort of airline problem.
Yeah.
I was stuck in the airport one time for 9 hours. Yeah. And I didn't get to Detroit, which is only like a 4 or 5 hour flight from actually, I only think it's 4 hours from LA. And I woke up at 3 a.m. my time to fly from San Diego to Detroit. And I was stuck at my layover for 9 hours because the flights kept getting canceled, whatever. And then I finally get to Detroit. And this is a crazy story, actually. So I get to Detroit, and it's like 3, 4 in the morning, and nobody's working. So I have to wait another hour for my bags. And this guy walks up to me, and I look like trash. Like, I'm like, first of all, I'm so grumpy.
You spent 10 hours in an airport.
Yeah, I'm so grumpy. Like, I took a Xanax because I like literally needed to chill out. So I'm just like, and then I have to wait an hour for my stupid luggage. And I'm like, this guy walks up to me and he's like, hey, I drove like 5 hours to see you at the club. Cause I admit it was a 3-day booking, and I missed the first day because of all the whatever. And he was like, I drove like 4 or 5, something crazy, to see you. And I've been following your stories on Instagram, and I saw that you were going to be at the airport and you didn't go to the club. So I figured I'd try to catch you at the airport. And I was like, wow. I felt so bad. I mean, yeah, I know it's kind of a little, and we can talk about like the crazy, like stalker. I have problems with stalkers, but this guy was innocent. Like, he was harmless. He was like
There are definitely those.
But he was on his way back. And so I guess I just forget. I forget like how many people follow me. And so I kind of like I kind of use my social media. Yeah, I kind of use my social media a bit as like a diary sometimes, and I forget that like I have a lot of eyes on me.
Right.
Because I don't know.
People probably like that. You know what I mean? They get that honest side of it. But yeah,
Yeah,
it does. It puts you out there in a way that you don't necessarily anticipate how people are going to react to it.
yeah,
Have you
and I just try to stay super authentic, on my
ever-
socials.
Yeah. Have you ever been approached at the airport by people with like bootleg stuff for you to sign? Have you
Yes, and I don't
Oh my
prefer
gosh.
that because
No,
it's such,
fuck no.
and
I think
actually
it's really rude.
one time I was on a flight and it was a terrible flight and I'm like laid over in Texas. I don't know what it is about Texas, but I always get stuck in Texas. So anytime I have a layover in Texas, I'm like, fuck that flight, cancel it, change it. I'm not doing it because I get stuck in Texas all the time. One time I was so pissed that I was stuck in Texas that I literally rented a car and drove. I made a vlog about it on my YouTube. I drove from Dallas, Texas all the way to LA because I was like, fuck this. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with airplanes. I'm just going to rent.
It was honestly
I
driving
don't
was
blame
so
you.
much better. Like when I was booking full time and I could drive from booking to booking, that was so much better. But yeah, if you can plan it so you're on the road like for a few weeks and you've got to drive to different
I,
bookings,
I wish
that
that
can
I
be
could have
really
been like
fun. But yeah, once you have like responsibilities and everything at home and you have to go back and forth, then it becomes more difficult. But I used to when I was full time featuring, I used to make an appointment. Like I would make a point of booking. Say I had 4 or 5 Midwestern bookings all at once,
Yeah.
so I could go up to the Midwest and I would go and stay with Raven, right? Or I would go stay somewhere, and then I would go from there do one in Illinois and one in Wisconsin and one
Yeah.
further up in Wisconsin because Wisconsin's so fucking huge, and then come back down to Michigan. Do you know what I mean?
I
That
wish
was the way
I
to
would
do
have
it.
done
With flying fucking it, that was the most draining part of it, especially when it's only like a 2 night booking and you're only doing 2 shows in that night, right?
that.
And then
Right.
you have to spend a day wasted at the airport.
Well, and I'm on the West Coast, so like
Yeah.
most of my bookings are like Midwest and East
Yeah.
Coast.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to drive because I always wanted, like my shows, I've always done more than just be like the porn star. Cause there's a difference between a porn star and a showgirl. Like you guys put on like incredible shows and I always wanted to do that. So all my costumes, you will never see me on stage wearing lingerie. That is my
Yeah.
biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
I get so mad when I see a porn star feature get on stage and they're wearing just like basic lingerie. And I'm
Yeah.
like, girl, you're the feature, like do something. So all my costumes have always been custom made and I've always, I'm nowhere near talented as like you guys as like showgirls, but I always tried to put on like a show of some sort, at least have a theme with like
your
costume.
popularity would counter that. Like I feel like that you've got an amazing show presence, and that's just something that you don't necessarily get to learn. Like you just have it. Like people, you wouldn't have the popularity and the long lasting career if you weren't talented and amazing to watch on stage. So I feel like
Stage
the porn
presence.
star show
Yeah.
goes, yeah. Like I feel like you're
Well,
so good
thanks.
with people, so it's like the performance is it's different and it's a different skill set, but it's still that same engaging the audience with.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
for
can't
sure.
teach that.
You
Yeah,
can't teach that. Like you cannot teach charisma. Like either you
no,
have it or you don't. And what's really ironic about the whole thing is I have severe social anxiety, like severe. And I don't have to drink to do my stage sets. I actually prefer to be like I'll have like 1 or 2 drinks, but I prefer to be like coherent, for your
Mhm.
own safety and stuff.
yeah,
But um for some reason I went to school at a performing arts school. A little backstory, like I started my whole family's was in the entertainment industry. And so I grew up in like showbiz. Like I started out really young as a runway model and I Steve. I did a lot of theater and I went to a performing arts school. I only went to school like part-time because most of the time I was like modeling or doing, performing arts, whatever. So I think that that's where it kind of comes from is it was a way for me to get away from like that social anxiety and just become like Brett Rossi. Like Brett Rossi is like a character where like Scotty is just like me, who I am, like this little barn girl. But like Brett Rossi is like a very, like big personality and just, can talk to a wall. And I mean, I can talk to a wall for sure.
Talk to a wall. We've all had to talk to a fucking wall.
Someone said to me, it was so funny. They're like, you could talk the leaves off a tree. Like I talk so much. I talk so much that like I actually made a TikTok about this where like literally I meet you and in 5 minutes I tell you my whole life story. I like trauma dump on you. I'm like, my whole life story within the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, why did I just tell you my life story? This is so embarrassing.
But you're perfect for podcasting then. It's trauma, but make it entertainment.
Yeah, for
sure. I was gonna say it's literally the trauma. I think that's the
it is.
It's how you trauma dump. Do you know what I mean? It's how you say the things that you need to like get off your chest. As long as you make it entertaining for everybody else listening, then it's not draining.
Hold on 2 seconds. I'm gonna take this bone away from Steve because she chose the loudest item.
I'm gonna fix my lighting as well.
And she's gonna get mad because I'm gonna take this bone away, but I'm gonna give her rubber chicken.
Okay.
The one she walks around the club with? This is the one that it's no longer, but she, when she used to go to the club, she used to walk around the club with like a rubber chicken and like people would tip her.
For the rubber chicken?
Yeah, and when I would be out of town, my ex would send me pictures because she would be with him at the club, and he would send me pictures like he'd be like, she got tips today.
That's so funny.
Huh, Steve? She's like
TV's toy fund.
Yeah, she's
No, I don't want the stroke. There we go.
But yeah, so I just I'm a talker, so
no, it's perfect.
But we like that. That's perfect. It's perfect for this.
Yeah, I actually early in my career, so when I turned 18, like I always wanted to be a Playboy playmate. Like that was my goal. The Girls Next Door was like a big thing back then.
Yeah.
And I had no boobs and I looked like Avril Lavigne, like bleach blonde hair, dark freaking eyeliner and like the white wife beater and like, like
thin eyebrows.
Yes. Don't forget the thin eyebrows.
Forever scarred by that.
And Hef was having the very first casting call at his mansion when he was with Holly, Kendra, and Bridget. Right. And I used to, back before like there was social media, there was forums. Do you remember like having forums? Like, so the E! Network had a Girls Next Door forum, and on the forum was posted like, oh, Hef is having this, casting call. And I was like, how do I get into this casting call? So I drove like this hoopty, like 1984 ghetto Honda Civic. And I had moved out when I was 17. So like, I was like living on like, catch up and
a prayer. Living on a prayer.
Catch up in a prayer. Yes. And when you turn on the lights, like, I don't ever know if you ever saw the movie Joe's Apartment with like the cockroaches.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know the song by heart.
Literally me. You would turn on the lights. I lived in like the attic of someone's house. I was like renting attic of someone's house, and I turned it into like whatever. It's really creepy and weird. You turn on the lights and the cockroaches would like scatter. It was terrible. But I was on my own and I didn't care. So I get my hoopty and I drive to print up MapQuest because we didn't have GPS then. We had MapQuest. And on my paper, and I'm like driving, trying to pick my CDs and like drive at the same time. And so I show up at the mansion and there's a rock and you have to talk to the rock. And I'm like seeing these girls, like beautiful girls. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot compete. Like, hello. And I'm like, how the fuck do I get into this like casting? So there's a group of girls that walk up to the rock and they start talking to the rock. And I was like, hey, like made friends with them. And the security lets all the girls in. So I just went with them. And now I'm in the mansion. I'm like, well, what do I fucking do now? Like, act like I belong, right? Like, fake it till you make it. So I acted like I belong. And I did like my test shoot. And I met this girl named Andrea Lowell and Kevin. And they were the hosts of the Playboy Morning Show. And they were like, we want you on the radio. So they put me on. And they're like, oh my God, you're radio gold. And I like instantly became like a fan favorite. And so they were constantly having me on the show. And then I got invited. Somehow Hef saw my picture and was like, I want her to be a painted girl for my parties.
Nice.
So I became a painted girl, and then like the rest is history. But that's like kind of how it started. I didn't start in porn. Like I wanted to be a playmate. That was like I didn't want to be a playmate because I wanted to be famous. I just was like, I just want big titties, and this is how I can buy them. You know what I mean?
I want to be naked on the cover of a magazine.
And you know what's growing up, my family always said you're going to be one of two things. Either you're going to be a porn star or a stripper. That was what they would tell me. Well, you know, here we are, you know.
I did tell my parents that's what I wanted to be when I grow up. But I said
love
hooker. I
being
didn't even
naked.
say porn star. I said I'd be a stripper or hooker. I think I'd just seen Pretty Woman. And there was this other film that they had been watching where there was this gorgeous redhead and she was dancing in a strip club, and I was like,
Yeah.
I always wanted to be one of those Vegas showgirls. Like my grandmother had a house in Vegas. So we would always go to Vegas and she'd take me on the strip and I'd see the showgirls and I'd be like, man, one day I want to be like them. Like they're just with their feathers and their costumes. And so I think that's why I'm so into costumes featuring, because I can like live that dream kind of like a pseudo dream, you know, because for that moment when you're on stage, like you're the showgirl, like you're the star, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
How long ago did you start doing porn?
So I started doing like, okay, in 2010 was when I did my first movie. But back up a little bit, before I even did my first movie, I was like a huge fan of do you remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like porn, but there was a porn star named Devin, and there was a movie by Digital Playground called Fantasy Island, and it was the only porn I had ever seen. And there was this girl named Devin who actually ended up being my mentor, and she kind of helped me when I first started featuring. But I remember Devin was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like, I want to be like Devin, you know? And I loved her name because it was a boy name and my real name is a boy name. And now my stage name is a boy name. And I was like, wow, you know? And so I actually I did Playboy, and then I did Hustler, and then I became a Penthouse pet. And when I became a Penthouse pet, somehow Howard Stern discovered me and he made me Miss Howard Stern. And then I hosted the Howard 100 show on like back when he had like the satellite network or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after that, I wanted so badly to shoot for this photographer named Tammy Sands, and there was this site called Twisties. And Twisties,
I know Twisties.
you know, Twisties, yeah. So back then, Twisties was all the beautiful glamour girls, and I wanted to be a glamour girl. That was my fucking goal. Like I was like, I'm gonna be one of those girls. And at the time, I was like, I don't know if I'm pretty enough, but I'm gonna be one of them. And at the time, I was best friends with this girl. And she was actually the first girl that I had like sex with. And she was a cam girl. And she got the opportunity to shoot with Tammy Sands, who was a huge photographer and her work was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, like put a good word in. And it just never came to fruition, you know, it just never happened. So I wrote the other photographer, Holly Randall, a long ass email. And I was like, this is why I deserve for you to shoot me. I said, you don't have to pay me. I just want to be in Twisties. And to my surprise, she responded and she shot me for Twisties. And then every men's magazine put me on the cover. Like it just happened overnight. And then I'm at Penthouse, fast forward, and I'm shooting like my pet pictorial. And I see these two girls and they're like, Penthouse used to have this beautiful studio, and these girls like were doing like a girl, and they start talking. They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm just a Penthouse pet. Like, I don't know what you're talking. Like, what do you mean? What do I do? Right. And they're like, well, you can make a lot of money doing girl because you're really pretty. And I was like, and this was back in the day when you could make money doing girl. Right. And I was like, I mean, I'm down to fuck hot chicks. Like, I mean, I'm not taking dick.
No
so
brainer.
how bad can this job be? And so then I ended up getting contracted with Twisties. I was offered a contract. I was their first contract star, and my career kind of just blew up from there. And I didn't actually do boy girl, like full on boy girl porn, like until 8 years into my career.
Yeah.
8 years I survived doing solo and girl, and I made really good money just doing that. So I never really needed to do boy girl.
Right.
And the industry was structured so differently back then. Like back then it was like, this is how you started. Well, this is how you did your career right. If you were really pretty, you do solo for as long as you can. And then you upgrade to like girl, and you do girl as long as you can. Then when you're ready to do boy girl, you shop it around and you get a showcase. And whoever bids the highest gets the showcase, and then you do boy girl, and then you get nominated for all these awards, and then the rest is history.
Oh,
That's how it used to.
okay.
And then after you do boy girl, then you shop around another showcase, and the other showcase is, I'm going to do anal.
Yeah.
And then you shop right
Is that
around.
the ultimate?
Well, back then, yes. And then it was a little different. So after anal, you shop around another showcase. And this was back when the industry was totally different. You would shop around an IR showcase. And so that's kind of how the tier worked.
Yeah.
Now it's structured so differently. Now girls come in like doing fucking blow bangs and whatever. So
Right off the bat.
it was just so different. And honestly, I was really lucky because I never had a bad experience. And I know that there are, unfortunately, people who have had bad experiences.
Mhm.
But I never had a bad experience because I was always kind of sheltered. I was what they called a contract girl. And back then, there was a difference between gonzo girls, which were like the girls are like crazy, like fucking their makeup all fucked up. And then there was glamour girls, and the glamour girls did like the feature films where there was dialogue and catering, and your makeup didn't get fucked up. You got like powdered in between, like getting railed, like like in jogging, they'd be like, cut, hold on. Like
we so interesting.
We need to like glue her lash back on. So there was a huge difference.
Right. Yeah.
And so when my Twisties contract was coming to an end, they were phasing out the digital playground contract girls for new ones. And the old digital playground girls were like Jessie Jane, BB Jones, Riley Steele, Kaden Cross, like the big names. And they were kind of phasing them out because they wanted a whole new generation. So my agreement was, okay, you're going to do your first boy girl for digital, and you're going to be the first of the new generation to do this, to do digital playground and be a digital playground contract star and do your boy girl. Well, I did my boy girl, and then they were like, actually, we changed our mind. And I kick myself now seeing where this company is now, but they were like, we don't want you to be a digital girl. We're going to fuck digital. We're not doing digital girls anymore. We're doing Brazzers contract girls. And I was like, oh, fuck no. I am not a Brazzers girl, because back then Brazzers was gonzo. And I was like, fuck no. I don't want my makeup fucked up. I can't take giant cock. Like, I just want normal dick. And like, you know what I mean? I was like, and I want dialogue. I want catering. I want my face. I want cute. Like, and they were like, well, this is where it's going. And I was like, well, fuck you. And I was so upset. And then I met Charlie, and I was like, well, never mind. Like, fuck everyone. So that's kind of like what happened up until that point, but the industry was so different than it is now. Now the performers have much more control.
Because they can be their own content creators, right?
Yeah. And so now when they do scenes, they do it more as a push for traffic to their own stuff. Whereas back then when you did scenes, you did it for exposure.
Yeah.
To become popular.
Right.
Yeah. It was such a different world than it is now. And, but yeah, I was like, so I remember, and I still to this day am loyal. I'm a glamour girl. I don't want my makeup fucked up. I mean, in personal life, that's different. But if I'm on film, like, I want to look cute.
Yeah. 100%.
Not saying fucked up makeup isn't cute, but like, I just wasn't the girl that was going to take 2 dicks up her ass. Like, I just couldn't.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty vulgar, but that's just
No,
wasn't me.
everybody has to have boundaries, and it's great
Yeah,
to
of
hear.
course.
Like honestly, this is a really positive story as far as like I think that this is good for people to hear because I think there is a fairly rotten assumption that everybody in the porn industry ends up having a really terrible experience, right?
Well,
Or
and
that
I
they
was,
don't regret it.
you know, because I was a contract girl, I was protected by corporations, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Because if you were just a performer and you were not contracted back then, like back then, being a contract star was like prestigious. Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
was like the ultimate goal. Um, but if you were just like independent, like you had an agent, but when I say independent, I mean not contracted. You
right,
had an agent and you just show up to this set, show up to that set. You were more likely to have your boundaries pushed, to be pressured, to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done. Whereas with the contract, you sit down when you sign that contract,
yeah,
and it's like, this is what I will do. This is what I won't do. These are my demands. These are my riders. I had a yes list. I didn't even have a no list. I was like, I had maybe 5 guys that I would fuck. And I'm like, this is the rotation. This is who
yeah,
I want to be with. And maybe
Yeah.
I would add another guy, but it was usually the same rotation. So ironically, everyone thinks that I've fucked like a zillion people. But what's funny is I don't have a high body count because when I was contracted, I was only fucking like the same 5 dudes like every
yeah,
month.
yeah,
And then in my personal life, my body count was even lower because I've always been in long-term relationships
yeah.
throughout
I can
my
tell you mine is in over the hundreds, so you're
over you go girl. You go.
way up there.
You go girl.
Way up there.
Your
And
body
I always knew porn stars. Like,
your
I knew
body
it.
higher than a porn star. Fuck yeah. But unfortunately, because of that, like perception, you know, and I feel I have empathy for the girls who have had bad experiences
Yeah,
because when I wasn't contracted and when I got my first agency, um, I did a couple scenes out of contract before Twisties like snatched me up. And I wouldn't say they were bad experiences, but they were experiences where I was pressured to do things I probably wouldn't have done
yeah,
because and also you're so young. Like I mean, I was only 20 and you just want to get your check. You don't want to cause any adversary. Um and so you just like if the director's like, "Oh, just blah blah blah," and you're like, you don't at that point you don't have enough confidence and you also don't have enough star power to be like, no, fuck you, I'm not fucking doing that. Cut. You aren't touching me like that. You're like I just, you don't have that confidence yet and you don't know what you can and can't say no to. So there are situations where I mean those stories are real, but
yeah,
not everyone has experienced that. And I would say the contract girls were a lot more protected because we have an ironclad contract.
right,
So,
right,
I mean, lawyers write it up, it goes back and forth. Like my Twisties contract took about 3 months to negotiate. Lawyers going back and forth, well, we want this. And I'm like, well, I want this. Well, we don't want this. And I'm like, well, I don't care. Like a lot of girls back in the day, well, yeah, like a lot of girls back in the day would give away their likeliness. They would be like, okay, for a great example, Digital Playground. A lot of people didn't know this. So when Jessie Jane was discovered by Digital Playground and signed with them, they owned her trademark. So when she left Digital, that's why when she started shooting for other companies, she went by Jessie
yeah,
because she didn't own Jessie Jane. Now, a better story, Tara Patrick. Tara
mhm,
Patrick had a workaround. Tara Patrick, they owned the name Tara Patrick, but you know how Tara Patrick got away from that? She legally changed her name to Tara Patrick. So
yeah,
that was the loophole. So when I got into the business, I was like, I'm trademarking Brett Rossi and nobody can have it. And so every contract I signed, they'd be like, well, we want Brett Rossi. And I'd be like, too bad. I own the trademark. You can't have it.
yeah,
That's smart.
And I advise all performers of any genre, mainstream, showgirls, porn girls, content creators, trademark your name if you're really serious about, because that way if some random Joe Schmo makes a toy of you, you just send a cease and desist and be like, yo, either you give me the funds for what you made or you take it down or I'm going to sue you because I own the rights.
Right. Yeah.
And you can make money licensing. Like, for example, for AI, I license my likeliness. So you can license yourself. Like, you license yourself for a toy, you license yourself for all these different avenues and ways to make money, because it's all about, you can't just have one revenue stream. You have to have so it's a big business. You just got to be a business person and be smart about it.
Was it the same for you, Bambi? Because it was around the same time frame you guys got into the industry.
Yeah, but so I was like, I did twisties, right? But
Oh, you did? I'm gonna Google you. I mean,
there was like a tiny, it was just like a tiny. It was when I first did like a penthouse shoot, and it's like it's like softcore. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it is.
Okay,
It's
like Digital Desire.
Remember? Yeah. Yes. It's
So
like a video
with the sexy music, the like boo doo boo choo
Yeah,
choo choo.
yes, yeah,